Let me tell you about the moment my boss tried to steal my work and accidentally destroyed his own reputation in front of the entire firm. At the time, he thought he was untouchable. He wore perfect suits, polished shoes, and carried himself with the kind of confidence that usually comes from being born into money. Around the office, people whispered that he was destined to become a partner someday. Meanwhile, I was just the junior associate stuck doing the research that senior lawyers depended on. What Andrew didn't realize was that I had already figured out exactly what he had been doing behind my back. And one Christmas, I decided it was time to teach him a lesson he would never forget. Back then, I was working as a junior associate at a large downtown law firm. If you've never worked in corporate law, it's hard to imagine the kind of environment it creates. 6-day work weeks were normal. There was constant pressure to meet brutal billable hour quotas, and partners were always watching your numbers. Junior lawyers like me were expected to do the heavy lifting, research, drafting, writing long memos, while more senior lawyers presented the finished work as their own. That was simply how the system worked. My immediate supervisor, let's call him Andrew, was only a few years ahead of me in seniority. Technically, he was supposed to be mentoring me. In reality, he was one of the worst lawyers I had ever encountered. For starters, he didn't actually know much law. His writing was sloppy and unclear, which is a serious problem in a profession where precision matters. But the biggest issue, the fatal flaw for someone working in litigation, was that Andrew was terrified of court. I still remember the first time I noticed it. We were in assignment court, which is one of the easiest court appearances imaginable. All you have to do is stand up, say your name, and schedule a trial date. That's it. But when it was Andrew's turn, his hands started shaking. I'm not exaggerating. He looked like someone had asked him to argue a constitutional case before the Supreme Court. In that moment, I realized something important. Andrew wasn't confident at all. He was just very good at pretending to be. Unfortunately, Andrew also had another habit, one that affected me directly. He stole my work. In a law firm, lawyers bill hours for almost everything they do. Research, writing, drafting opinions. Every minute gets recorded. Those billable hours become the primary measure of your value inside the firm. If you hit your quota, you're considered productive. If you fall short, people start asking uncomfortable questions. Andrew had discovered a clever little trick to boost his own numbers while hurting mine. Whenever I wrote a detailed research memo for him, he would quietly delete my hours from the billing system. Then he would take the memo I had written and submit it to a partner under his own name. I lost the credit, and he looked like the hard-working genius putting in all the effort. The first time it happened, I assumed it was an honest mistake. The second time, I started to feel suspicious. By the third time, there was no doubt in my mind about what he was doing. Fortunately for me, our firm had something fairly advanced for the early 1990s, an internal computer network. We even had email at a time when most companies didn't yet have internet access. The security, however, was not exactly impressive. If you knew where to look, you could find internal documents, draft memos, and all sorts of digital trails. Occasionally, you could even find proof that someone had copied or reused work that wasn't theirs. The situation finally reached a breaking point one afternoon, when Andrew tossed a memo back onto my desk. "This opinion is garbage," he said flatly. I blinked in surprise and asked what was wrong with it. He replied that it wasn't what he had asked for, but when I pulled up the assignment email he had sent me 2 weeks earlier, it matched the memo exactly, word for word. That was when everything became clear. Andrew wasn't criticizing my work at all. He was preparing to delete my hours again and claim the credit for himself. Frustrated, I went to one of the partners and explained what had been happening. I hoped he would intervene. Instead, he simply shrugged and told me, "You'll just have to work harder, or smarter." In partner language, that meant one thing: handle the problem yourself. That night, I decided to do exactly that. Christmas was approaching, and the partner Andrew reported to was extremely old school. He hated computers. He didn't use email, didn't assign tasks digitally, and preferred everything to arrive as printed memos. That gave me an idea. I created a memo that looked exactly like something he would write. The letterhead was identical. The formatting matched perfectly. Even the language and tone were convincing. The memo assigned a massive research project involving admiralty law, constitutional issues, and historical case law. Exactly the kind of complicated assignment that could take weeks to complete. Most importantly, it stated that the project was extremely urgent. After printing it out, I quietly placed it on Andrew's desk and made sure it would be the first thing he saw on the morning of December the 24th. Later that same morning, Andrew walked over to the junior cubicles and handed me a typed version of the memo. Just as I had expected, the assignment now looked like it was coming from him. "This needs to be done immediately," he said. I sighed dramatically and reminded him that I was supposed to be away for the holidays. "Too bad," he replied. "Let HR know you're working overtime." Then he walked away smiling, clearly pleased with himself. He thought he had just ruined my Christmas. What he didn't know was that 3 years earlier, when I was still in law school, I had written a research paper on almost the exact same topic. All I had to do was locate the old floppy disk, update the material, add some citations, and expand it into a full legal memorandum. In about 2 hours of editing, I suddenly had a 100-page document. After that, I enjoyed my entire holiday break. Just for fun, I stopped by the office a few times and logged my time. Research, drafting, analysis. By the time I finished, I had recorded over 100 billable hours. The first day back after the holidays, Andrew walked into the office wearing one of his expensive suits, complete with a gold watch and gold cufflinks. He looked like he was trying especially hard to impress someone that day. He came straight to my desk and asked where the memo was. "I finished it this morning," I said, handing him the thick stack of pages. He smiled immediately. It was exactly what he wanted. A massive piece of work he could present to the partner with his own name attached. About an hour later, the entire office heard shouting from down the hallway. A door slammed open, and the partner's voice echoed through the firm. "Andrew, get in here, now!" A moment later, the yelling grew even louder. "What the hell is this?" Apparently, Andrew had proudly walked into the partner's office and presented the memo as the result of weeks of work. Unfortunately for him, the partner had never assigned that project. Andrew had just admitted that he had spent over 100 hours of firm time on something completely useless. Soon after, my name was called as well. When I walked into the office, the partner was holding the memo as if it were contaminated. He asked if I had written it. I calmly explained that the cover page had been changed, but the memo itself was indeed mine. Then he asked whether I had really worked on it over Christmas. I confirmed that I had spent over 100 hours completing it. That was when the partner completely lost his temper. From his perspective, Andrew had wasted an enormous amount of billable time on a project no one had requested, and he hadn't even realized he had been tricked. Over the next few days, the story spread quickly throughout the firm. Partners were furious. Andrew looked like a complete fool, and most importantly, no one blamed me. After all, I was just the junior lawyer following the instructions given to me. Things changed after that incident. The partner instructed me to send all future memos directly to him, which meant Andrew could never steal my work again. He also stopped deleting my billable hours. In fact, the firm even gave me a small bonus for working through the holidays. I didn't stay at that firm forever. Corporate law can be brutal, and eventually I moved on to something better. But every now and then, when I think back to those early years, I remember the day my boss tried to take credit for my work and accidentally exposed himself in front of the entire firm. Around the office, we started referring to it as the case of the forged memo, and honestly, it still makes me smile.